You won't believe what happened to me and brought me almost to a nervous breakdown. I was practically at the limit of what a person can endure. But after everything that happened, you will be shocked how it all ends. Wait until the end of this story to find out. That day felt like any other, the kind you forget as soon as it ends. I'd gone for a walk around the block, nothing special, just clearing my head after another long shift. And when I came home, I remember my hand on the doorknob, twisting it open to the sound of my wife's voice echoing faintly through the house. She was laughing, light, carefree, and I caught the tail end of her sentence before she froze mid-word. Silence. Just silence. Her eyes met mine from across the room, phone still pressed to her ear. And in that split second, I saw it. A flicker of something I couldn't name then. Something small, something that felt like a tiny crack across glass. She ended the call fast, some excuse about it being her sister. Back then, I didn't think twice. People pause conversations when someone walks in, right? It meant nothing. Or at least that's what I told myself. Looking back, it was the first domino. I just didn't know the others had already started to fall. 6 months later, I found a bottle of cologne under our bed. I was on my knees rummaging for one of the kids' toys. A little plastic fire truck that somehow always ended up in places it shouldn't, and my fingers brushed against cold glass. I pulled it out, confused, holding it up to the light. Dark blue bottle, sleek design. I'd never seen it before. The scent hit me sharp and unfamiliar. Masculine, bold, half empty. It wasn't mine. When I confronted her, she didn't flinch. Said she bought it for me. Thought I'd like it. Swore she meant to surprise me, but forgot. Forgot? A half-empty bottle of cologne stuffed under the bed? I stood there, holding that damn bottle like it was a ticking bomb, and something shifted inside me. I couldn't put it into words, but it felt like gravity tilted, like I wasn't on solid ground anymore. Still, I nodded, set it on the dresser, and tried to believe her. Tried to believe I was imagining things. I wanted to believe. Weeks passed. Tension built like a storm creeping just out of sight. It was during one of our arguments, one of those typical, stupid fights about the kids and chores and everything that didn't really matter, that it happened. Her phone buzzed on the table beside me, the screen lighting up with a message. I glanced, not meaning to, but the words seared into my brain. Miss you. No name, just that, and a number I didn't recognize. I felt cold all over, but I didn't say a word. She snatched the phone up so fast it was like she touched a hot stove. Started talking about spam messages, some glitch. Who even uses SMS anymore? I nodded again, memorized the number. Later that week, at my brother's birthday dinner, everything unraveled. She looked pale, restless, barely touched her food. Said she wasn't feeling well, asked for the car keys. I offered to drive her, but she waved me off with that same damn smile, the one that had started to feel hollow. Minutes later, I stepped outside for a smoke, and there she was, across the street, slipping into a black car, a man behind the wheel. I didn't think. I just ran, dodging traffic, slipping between moving cars, trying to keep up with that vehicle like my life depended on it. People shouting, horns blaring, the smell of burnt rubber and exhaust thick in my nose. My foot caught the edge of the curb, and I hit the pavement hard. Blood gushed from my palm, scraping down my elbow, my shirt torn. The car vanished into the city, and I lay there bleeding, chest heaving, surrounded by strangers staring down at me like I was insane. Maybe I was, because in that moment, everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, my wife, it all cracked wide open, and I had no idea how deep the damage ran. The days after I fell chasing that black car felt like some twisted dream I couldn't wake from. My body ached, especially my hand, torn open from the fall, but that pain was nothing compared to the pounding in my chest. I kept seeing her in my mind, slipping into that car like it was nothing, like I was nothing. I didn't tell her I'd seen, didn't mention the fall. When I got home that night, blood dried and clothes torn, She was curled up on the couch watching TV like the world hadn't shifted beneath my feet. She asked what happened, concern flickering in her eyes, but I brushed it off. Said I tripped. Said it was nothing. It was everything. A week passed, maybe two, and I couldn't stop thinking about that message. Miss you. I couldn't shake it. That number haunted me. I kept checking it in my head, over and over, like it might change, but it didn't. So I waited. I waited for a chance. It came at my mother's place, a family gathering, small, just lunch, the kind where the kids ran wild in the backyard while the adults clung to polite conversation. My wife stayed behind at home, claiming a migraine, said she needed rest. I didn't argue, I left, but not without setting a small black recording device on the kitchen counter, nestled behind the toaster. Just one day, I thought. I'll come back tomorrow early, catch her off guard. I'd get answers one way or another. The next morning, I returned just after dawn. The house was quiet, still. My heart pounded in my ears as I stepped inside. The faintest trace of cologne, that cologne, hitting me like a brick wall. It wasn't mine, and it wasn't just in the air. It clung to the fabric of the couch, the curtains, like someone had been here. I walked into the kitchen. 2 wine glasses sat in the sink, one with a lipstick stain, the other smudged with fingerprints. I stared at them, breathing hard, as she came downstairs in a robe, pretending to yawn, acting surprised. Just a friend, she said. Dropped by late. We talked, had a drink, that's all. I didn't say a word, just nodded. Again. I was getting good at nodding. That night I sat in the dark, headphones in, heart racing as I listened to the recording. It started quiet. Normal. Kitchen sounds, then footsteps. The door opened. Not mine. Male voice. Laughter. Low. Familiar. Number. Not someone I knew. Then the sound of lips meeting. Quick. Passionate. I couldn't breathe. Minutes passed. Muffled conversation. Barely audible. Then the man's phone rang. He cursed. Said he had to leave. Something about being late. She whined, told him next time they'd have more time. More time. Like this was routine. The door closed. My hands shook as I reached for the screwdriver, not even knowing what I was doing. I'd fixed that nightstand a dozen times. It always got jammed, the drawer sticking. This time it jammed harder than ever. I yanked it, felt it catch on something, and when it gave way, a small cardboard box slid into view. Photos. A dozen, maybe more. Her and him, different places. A car, the park, a hotel room. Her face tilted toward his. Their arms wrapped around each other like lovers in a goddamn romance novel. One shot, them kissing, her hand on his chest, burned into my brain. My hand clenched the frame of the drawer so hard my knuckles cracked. That was it. There was no going back. No more nodding, no more pretending. I stared at those photos, at the woman I thought I knew, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I didn't exist. Like I was just a shadow in the life we built together. The next night, I locked myself in the bathroom, music blaring, drowning out the world. I cracked open a bottle of vodka, downed half of it straight, no chaser. My reflection stared back at me, eyes hollow, face pale. I barely recognized him. I don't know what came over me. I punched the mirror. Shards rained down, slicing into my knuckles. Blood pouring from my hand, splattering across the white tile like some kind of abstract painting. I stood there, breathing heavy, hand throbbing, and in that moment, something inside me snapped into focus. I was done. Done waiting. Done bleeding. She'd taken something from me I could never get back. I wasn't going to let her take anything else. Blood dripped from my fingers as I staggered back from the shattered mirror, the vodka bottle still clutched in my good hand. My heartbeat pounded like a war drum in my ears, drowning out the music, the outside world, everything. My eyes were fixed on the cracks spiderwebbing across the glass, my own distorted reflection fractured into 1,000 jagged pieces. It felt right. Like that mirror finally reflected the truth. Who I really was now. A man broken, betrayed, and done playing the fool. I cleaned the wound, wrapped it in a towel, and sat on the edge of the tub, staring at nothing for a long time. Then just like that, the fog lifted. I had no more doubts, no more excuses. I needed to act, to end this charade before it consumed me completely. No more waiting for the truth to find me. I already had the truth. I'd seen it in the pictures, heard it in the kitchen footage. Now I needed to burn her lies down. And I was going to do it in front of everyone. I started tracking her schedule. She wasn't careful anymore. She moved like she didn't have a reason to hide, like she believed I was too blind or too weak to do anything. I watched her. When she left for errands, when she picked up the kids, when she claimed she was meeting friends for coffee. I took notes, memorized times, routes, patterns. Her routine didn't change. She didn't know I was watching. She didn't know every smile she flashed, every fake kiss on the cheek made me want to rip down the walls of our house. I needed the right moment, a stage, an audience. Then it hit me. Her parents' anniversary was coming up. A family dinner was already planned. My chance. She'd be surrounded by the people she swore to honor, the family she promised to build with me. Perfect. I made preparations, set the date. I didn't sleep much that week. Too many thoughts rattling in my skull, too much hate simmering just beneath the surface. I stopped caring about work. I barely ate. I lived for that dinner. The day came fast. I stood in the kitchen early that morning, pouring wine into crystal decanters, setting out plates, napkins, cutlery, every detail perfect. She moved around me like nothing was wrong, like we were some picture-perfect couple playing host. She touched my arm once, and I pulled away. Her eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. I had the footage ready. I'd copied it to a flash drive and connected it to the TV. Set to play with a single click. The kitchen footage. No sound, just visuals. It was enough. Family arrived just before 7. Her parents, her sister, my brother and his wife. The kids ran around, laughter filling the house. Everything looked normal. Everything felt normal. But inside me there was a storm ready to break. Dinner went on in slow motion. I poured wine, smiled at small talk, watched her fake her way through conversations. Her hand brushed my leg under the table. I moved. Her father noticed, his brow creasing. She laughed it off, changing the subject. But I saw the crack in her armor. Finally, I stood. "I want to make a toast," I said, lifting my glass. Everyone quieted. I raised my glass high, staring at her. To truth, to family, to the things that really matter. I clicked the remote. The TV flickered to life. The video played. At first, silence, then gasps. There she was, on screen. The stranger entering our kitchen, her lips on his, their hands roaming. My wife, exposed in HD. Her face drained of color. Her mother sobbed. Her father stood up, shouting her name. The kids froze. My brother's wife covered her mouth, eyes wide in shock. No one spoke. No one moved. She tried to speak, tried to explain. I didn't let her. I walked to the bedroom, grabbed the bags I'd packed for the kids, and told them we were going to Grandma's for the night. She reached for them. I stepped between them. "Don't." She stood there trembling, broken in front of her family, the truth laid bare. I didn't look back. I drove to my mother's with the kids asleep in the back seat, their heads resting on pillows, unaware of how everything had changed. When I got there, I tucked them in and kissed their foreheads. My mother didn't ask questions. She just nodded, her face tight with grief and rage. I stayed up all night, opening a new bank account, moving funds. I wasn't going to let her touch another cent. The next morning, I blocked her number. She didn't waste time. By the next afternoon, her calls started flooding in. Numbers I didn't recognize. Voicemails I didn't bother to hear. I knew what she wanted. She wanted control back, to claw her way into my head. But I'd sealed that door shut the moment I walked out of our house with the kids and never looked back. I spent the morning at the bank finalizing the transfer. Every dollar I could legally move, I did. I wasn't about to let her take the house, the savings, the kids' future. Not after what she'd done. Not after she'd made a mockery of our marriage. I'd earned that life. She hadn't. That night I sat at my mother's kitchen table, staring at the ceiling as the kids slept in the next room when the call came in. Not her this time. My lawyer. He was brief, straight to the point. She's trying to transfer property. Looks like the house and car. I laughed. I couldn't help it. An ugly, bitter laugh that ripped from my throat like something primal. Of course she was. She wanted to gut me. Wanted to take what she hadn't already shattered. I blocked the notary action, he said. But you need to act fast. She's panicking. Let her panic. I knew exactly where to find him. The man who destroyed my life. Her lover. I'd dug enough. Found where he worked. Who he was. I didn't care about names anymore. He was just him. The one she gave herself to. The one who touched what wasn't his. The one who smelled like that cologne I couldn't scrub out of my memory. I drove straight to his office building. No plan, no hesitation, just a storm in my chest and fire in my veins. He didn't see me coming. He was outside talking to someone, laughing, like everything was perfect in his world. I walked up, closed the distance in seconds, and the moment his eyes met mine, I swung. Fist colliding with his nose, the crack sharp, satisfying. He hit the ground hard, blood pouring down his face. Don't ever go near her again, I growled, standing over him, my fist clenched, still shaking. People were shouting. Someone called security. I didn't care. I walked away, hands burning, blood, his or mine, I didn't know, dripping down my wrist. I drove straight home, adrenaline still pounding, and locked myself in the garage. I couldn't feel the pain yet, just the fury. She showed up that night, banging on the door of my mother's house, mascara running, face blotchy with tears. Her voice cracked as she begged to see the kids, to talk, to explain. My mother stepped between us, told her to leave. She didn't listen. I'm pregnant, she cried. It's yours, please, just talk to me. Liar. I stared at her, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. Test, I said flatly. You want me to believe you? Get a paternity test. She hesitated. Just a flicker, but enough. I will, she whispered. I will, I thought he'd give me a better life, he promised. He said we could be happy. But he's gone. He dumped me. I have nothing. Please. I need you. I laughed in her face. Test came back 2 days later. The child wasn't mine. I didn't speak to her after that. I didn't need to. She was finished. The house? Gone. She had no claim now. No place to go. Her parents wouldn't take her in. Not after seeing the footage. She ended up sleeping on a friend's couch. Word was the friend didn't want her there long. As for him, the lover, he never showed his face again. She was alone, and I didn't care. I met someone new, someone who didn't lie, who didn't smell like betrayal and cheap wine. She was kind, steady, strong, the kind of woman who didn't just support me, but held me up when I felt like collapsing. The kids loved her, and for the first time in a long time, our home felt clean again. No shadows, no lies. The calls started again, late at night. Her number, blocked. She tried new ones, messages begging for help, said she was drowning, said she had nowhere to go, said she needed me. I turned my phone off and watched the sun rise. Let her drown. Word spreads fast in this town. I didn't have to lift a finger. People whispered behind her back now. Neighbors, friends, even her own family. She tried to keep up appearances at first, tried to pretend everything was just a rough patch, but no one bought it. After that dinner, after the footage, after her father threw her out of the house screaming, "You're no daughter of mine," the illusion was dead. She vanished from our street like a ghost, moved in with some coworker who had no idea what kind of parasite she'd let in. I didn't care. I had my own life to rebuild, and for once, I was finally getting it back. The kids didn't ask about her much. At first, they did. Innocent questions, wondering when she'd come home, why she wasn't at the table with us anymore. I gave them the simplest truth I could. Mom made some bad choices, and we're safer this way. They nodded. Kids are smart, smarter than we give them credit for. They knew. And when she finally tried to see them again, they didn't want her. Why is she here? My daughter asked, standing behind me when I opened the door to find her there, clutching a box of toys and old photos like it meant something. Her eyes were swollen, voice cracking as she pleaded to come inside, to see her babies, to explain. My daughter stepped forward, eyes cold. You lied to Daddy. You don't love us. Go away. I didn't have to say a word. She broke down right there on the porch, but I didn't comfort her. I didn't offer a hand or a word. I closed the door. Weeks passed, and she started to crack. I didn't hear it from her. She was cut off completely. But word came through mutual acquaintances. She lost her job. Apparently, her new life wasn't quite what she imagined. With her lover gone, her name trashed at work, and no house or savings left, reality hit her like a freight train. Debt collectors started calling her, then calling her friend, the one she was living with. Then I guess the friend kicked her out. She was couch surfing, barely scraping by, calling around for any help she could get. Then one night my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring, then a voicemail, her voice shaking. Please, I'm sorry, I have nothing. I'm living in my car. I haven't eaten in 2 days. I don't know what to do. I need you. I need help. Please don't let me die like this. I'm begging you. I stood there in the kitchen, holding my phone, the kids asleep upstairs, my new partner folding laundry at the table, her hands calm, her eyes steady as she glanced over. I didn't play the message for her. I deleted it, blocked the number. The next morning, I took the kids to the beach. We ate ice cream, watched the waves, laughed like nothing had ever gone wrong. I looked at them, at the smiles on their faces, and for the first time in months, I realized I didn't feel that weight on my chest anymore. No tension, no dread. Just life, steady, peaceful. The promotion came not long after. I'd been grinding for it for years, always coming close, never quite there. But now, clean slate, no distractions. I walked into the boardroom ready, confident, and walked out as senior project lead, a position that came with a fat raise and respect I hadn't felt in years. We celebrated that night, my partner, the kids, me, pizza, soda, nothing fancy, just us, together, whole. I watched them dance in the living room, giggling, spinning around in the soft glow of the lamp, and I felt it, something I hadn't felt in a long time. I was free. I didn't think about her anymore. Not the way I used to. Her face didn't haunt me. Her voice didn't echo in my skull. She was a ghost, and ghosts can't hurt you. Sometimes I'd hear from someone, a neighbor, a friend, that she'd shown up again, tried to see the kids, tried to explain, but they wanted no part of it. She left us, my son said once, clutching a drawing he'd made. She picked someone else. Yeah, kid, she did. And now, she could live with that. I didn't know her anything. Not a word, not a dollar, not a second of my life. It was sometime past midnight when my phone lit up again. Another unknown number. Another message I didn't ask for. I didn't want to check it. Not then, not ever. But something, call it closure, call it curiosity, pulled my thumb toward the screen. Her voice came through, faint, trembling. I have nowhere else to go. They're going to take my car. I haven't slept in 2 days. It's freezing, and I can't keep living like this. Please, just help me get on my feet. I'll pay you back, I swear. I need to see the kids. I miss them. I sat there in the dark, phone in hand, the soft hum of the ocean drifting in through the cracked window. The kids were asleep in the next room, the soft rhythm of their breathing grounding me. My partner's arm draped across my chest, her warmth pulling me back to the present. And I realized something. I felt nothing. No pity, no anger, just nothing. She'd made her choice. She gambled everything on a promise of a new life with some nobody and lost. Now there was nothing left for her but the wreckage, and I wasn't about to be her life raft. I turned off my phone and rolled over, pressing my hand to my partner's back, feeling the rise and fall of her breath. She didn't wake, but she reached for my hand in her sleep, fingers lacing through mine. That's all I needed. That's all I wanted. Let her cry alone. Weeks passed. I heard she'd been fired. Something about taking advances from clients, promising favors she couldn't deliver. Then came the debt collectors, the repossession of her car, and finally eviction notices from whatever couch she was squatting on. She was toxic. No one wanted to be near her. I got a call from an old friend who worked downtown. Said she'd been seen panhandling near a bus stop, bundled in layers, face hollow, eyes sunken. He asked if I'd heard from her. No, I said, and I don't plan to. He didn't bring her up again. Life went on. I rose through the ranks at work, my name on contracts I'd only dreamed about. My kids thrived. My son joined Little League. My daughter started piano lessons. We built something real, something solid, something no one could touch. She, on the other hand, faded. She became a cautionary tale in hushed conversations, a name people dropped with sympathy laced in judgment. Poor thing. She had it all, and look where she ended up. Through it all, she kept trying. Letters, emails, late-night voicemails, all ignored. But one day she crossed the line. She showed up at the school. I got the call from the principal. She'd tried to see them during lunch, brought them gifts. The staff intervened. She was escorted off the property, but the damage was done. My daughter cried that night, clutching the toy her mother left behind. My son threw his in the trash. Why is she doing this? He asked. Why won't she leave us alone? Because broken people cling to anything that reminds them of what they destroyed. I filed for a restraining order the next day. She didn't contest it. She didn't have the strength anymore. The final blow came in the form of a letter. Handwritten, scrawled, shaky. The kind of thing you'd expect from someone who'd lost their mind. No return address, no stamp. Hand-delivered to my mailbox. Inside was a single sheet of paper. I'm sorry for everything. You didn't deserve this. I wish I could undo it all. Please, just one chance. I'll spend the rest of my life proving I can be better. I'll never stop loving you. I read it once, laughed. Then I tore it into pieces and tossed it into the fireplace. I sat there watching the flames eat away at the words, the lies, the desperation. Watching the ashes rise and vanish, carried away by the draft. Just like her. She was gone. I stood up, walked outside, and watched the sun dip below the waves, casting fire across the horizon. The kids laughed behind me, chasing each other through the sand. My partner joined me, slipping her hand into mine. For the first time in years, I felt peace. She was the past. This, the ocean, the laughter, the love that still stood. This was my future, and I wasn't looking back. It had been months since I'd last heard her voice, at least directly. The restraining order held, the silence stretched, and I figured she'd finally gotten the message. Maybe she'd crawled into some hole far away, to rot in peace. Maybe the streets had swallowed her whole. I didn't care. Life was steady. The kids had stopped asking about her altogether. And my partner, hell, she was the glue that kept everything together. She wasn't just there. She showed up for us, day in and day out. No lies, no betrayal, just quiet strength. Then out of nowhere, her name came up again. I was grabbing coffee downtown when an old mutual friend flagged me down. One of those guys I hadn't seen since before the fall. The kind who knew everything about everyone. You hear about her? He asked, lowering his voice like we were sharing state secrets. No, I said, and I don't want to. He ignored me, eyes lit with gossip. She's hit rock bottom, lost her job, got evicted again. Owes a ton. Collectors are all over her. I heard she's sick, real bad. No insurance, no friends. She's got no one. Good. I didn't say it out loud, but it echoed in my head like a goddamn victory chant. Let her burn. Let the world chew her up like she did to me. Spit her out the way she left us behind. She built this hell herself. One lie at a time. That night, another message came through. I don't even know how she got my new number. Must have paid someone, begged someone. She was always good at using people. I opened the voicemail, not because I cared, but because I wanted to hear her desperation. Wanted to feel how far she'd fallen. Her voice was hollow, like someone barely holding it together. I know you hate me. I don't blame you. I hate myself, but I have nowhere to go. I'm so cold. Please, I don't want to die like this. Just help me. One more time. Not for me, for the kids. Please, I'll never bother you again. I sat there in my office, lights off, the only sound the wind scraping against the windows, and I stared at the phone, waiting for something, anything, to stir inside me. Nothing. Not rage, not sorrow, just emptiness. She was a stranger now, a ghost haunting her own grave. I didn't respond. Didn't block the number this time either. I just left the message there, a reminder of what she'd become, a warning, a monument to everything I'd survived. A week later, we celebrated my promotion. Big night, big crowd, laughter, drinks, the kids running around with sparklers in the backyard, my partner by my side, smiling, alive, real. After everyone left, the kids asleep, we stood on the deck, watching the embers fade in the fire pit. She leaned into me, her head on my shoulder. "I'm proud of you," she said. I didn't answer right away. I just looked out at the sky, at the stars flickering above us, and breathed. Deep, easy. For once, I wasn't fighting the past. I wasn't haunted. I was here, present, free, and she, the woman who destroyed everything, was just a shadow now. Lost, forgotten. Let her call. Let her cry. Let her beg. I wasn't listening. The waves crashed in slow rhythm, the kind of sound that seeped into your bones, that pulled everything else, every thought, every memory, into the background. The sky was streaked in orange and deep violet, the sun slipping beneath the horizon, like a curtain being drawn on the past. We were on vacation, just me, the kids, and her. The woman who stood beside me now, barefoot in the sand, a glass of wine in one hand, her other hand wrapped in mine. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Behind us, the fire crackled in the pit we built earlier that evening, a makeshift blaze that threw shadows across the beach house patio, soft light flickering against the laughter of the kids as they chased each other near the water, their voices pure, unburdened. And for once, I didn't feel the urge to run, to escape the weight pressing on my chest, because it was gone, all of it, the betrayal, the lies, the sleepless nights, burned away like the last embers in that fire. I reached into my bag, pulled out the envelope. I hadn't told anyone about it. It arrived a few days before we left. No sender, just my name scrawled on the front. I knew the handwriting. Even after all this time, I recognized it like a scar you can't forget. I almost threw it out unopened. Almost. But curiosity, it's a stubborn thing. I sat on the porch the night it came, alone, the stars hidden behind clouds, and tore it open with a flick of my knife. Inside, a letter. Pages, actually. 3 of them. All ink-stained confessions. "I don't know who I am anymore," she'd written. "Every day feels like punishment. I lost everything, the house, the kids, you. And I deserve it. I know I do. But I think about you every night, about what we had, about what I threw away." She went on. Apologies, memories, even thanks. She thanked me for loving her once, for building a life she destroyed. She talked about the kids, how she dreamed of seeing them again, hearing their voices just once. Then came the plea. "Please, I'm not asking for the life we had. I know that's gone, but maybe, just maybe, we could start over. As friends, as something, anything. Please don't let this be the end." I read it once, sat there in silence, the wind picking up off the street, carrying her words like ash. Then I stood, walked back inside, tossed it on the kitchen counter. Next morning I tore it up. No ceremony, no hate, just finality. Now, standing here by the sea, the remnants of that letter burned away days ago, I watch my children, their faces lit by firelight in the last glow of sunset. They were whole, not broken, not scarred. And I was here, not in pieces, not chasing shadows. She was gone. She'd carved her own path to ruin, and I didn't need to follow her there. I didn't need to forgive her. I didn't need to speak her name again. I reached for another log, tossed it into the flames, sparks rising into the night sky. My partner leaned into me, her eyes on the horizon. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah," and I meant it. I watched the fire, the kids, the waves, everything I loved, everything real, and for the first time in a long, long while, I felt peace. Because everything she was, the lies, the betrayal, the pain, it was behind me now. Burned. Forgotten. Let her stay there. Let her burn. That's all for now, folks. Thank you for being with me today and listened. And if you liked my story, please subscribe, hit the like button, and comment below what you think about all this, and what would you do if you were me. Also, don't forget to check my other stories in description below.